Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at a brand new release from Broadway Limited. It's the Broadway Limited HO scale SD70ACe. And the big kicker with this locomotive is the fact that it's mostly die-cast. Very, very heavy locomotive. I can already tell in this box here how heavy it is. And the other thing is, this is the first time in the industry a die-cast SD70ACe, possibly any diesel locomotive, don't quote me on that, has been released. So we're going to cover pulling power, and we'll do the very first time on this channel where we'll actually do rolling stock already on the layout in large quantities and do pull tests and compare it to some of the industry diesels, pulling power. And we're going to do obviously the actual scale pulling power, so you'll see, what it's supposed to equate to, but it's like 1 ounce per 15 cars. We'll actually see if each ounce pulls 15 cars in this review, so that's kind of different. And we're going to look at comparisons of this ace versus other industry aces. So let's get started with the review of the Broadway Limited SD70ACe right now. Now this is one of my more highly anticipated locomotives releasing this year. Now this is the MRL Veterans Tribute version. We've got all or most paint schemes to show you, so you'll just have to hold on for that. But I wanted to pick a colorful one to unbox. You've got a Conductors Club pamphlet here that is an annual membership, very affordable, where you can get highly discounted, limited releases to only Conductors Club members, plus 10% off on the BLI outlet store and some other perks. So take a look at that if you want to pause the video. This talks about smoke units operation. This is equipped with a smoke unit, and it looks like the fan grills come off for that smoke unit operation. So you can have that on or off based on your personal preference. And then the manual is that white scheme that's been out for a while on the box in the manual from Broadway Limited. 27 pages going over lots of details, including functions and configuration variables and such. So there's that. But let's get to the locomotive itself with the unboxing of that. And we're upside down, because whenever I have a 50-50 chance of anything, I will get it wrong. But here is the locomotive. It's in dense foam with what they call plastic blister packaging. So tight packed here. It's got 2 fall-away side braces for the packaging. And then soft plastic and a bunch of handrails. Now this scheme has not been released in HO scale. There's been another Veterans MRL unit released from another manufacturer, but let's go ahead and get all these handrail protections out. We'll start with a 360 and we'll point out some details. Well, I was going to start with the MRL, but as you can see, the pattern's kind of visually distracting. It's going to be hard to show you all of the details, so I've went ahead and put a UP version up here. I've also got NS, but that's kind of real dark, so it's going to be hard to see. So what we'll do is we'll have the MRL on one side, the UP on the other, so by the time we get around to the other side, we can talk about one locomotive and then the other. So the UP version, we'll talk about this side of the UP version. Antennas are going to vary per road number, obviously a road name. MRL's got the dome antennas still. UP has these modern PTC antennas. You have a sunshade, you have clear windows on the side with silver frames. You've got your isolated cab kind of area here. It's built into the die cast. There's no like dark line, but you can see that angled area there. That's an isolation for the cab. It's supposed to help keep the cab quiet for crew on this locomotive and separate from I think rattles and just sounds. You also have that isolation there on the nose as well. Truck detail, decent. You can see the jacking pad just above the trucks, but I'll let you be the judge for yourself in terms of some of this detail. I'm just going to point out the obvious. You see your battery box doors and stuff are molded into the die cast, and you can see plumbing, emergency shutoff on the fuel tank here. The UP flag looks nice. People have been commenting about the yellow. Does it seem off? I don't think it seems off, but we'll compare this to a different brand here shortly. As we go further back, you can see sight glass there right in front of the radiator fan grills. Now the radiator fans are plastic and they do pop off so that you can change that smoke detector to on or off. Let me zoom out here, camera to catch that piece, but it just pops right off, and then there's a switch up top to turn the smoke detector on or off. Smoke detector, smoke unit, sorry. I actually was just replacing a whole bunch of smoke detectors in my house, so smoke detector is in the brain. So I'm going to have to pause to get this back on. And properly, I don't want to fidget with stuff and take too much time because this video is already going to be long. But it looks like I got it back in place here. There is a fan grill on the back. There's brake wheel detail there. Union Pacific shield on the rear. And the couplers are metal couplers. Not sure if they're a specific brand or not. On the rear, by the way, I want to mention the handrails, which are plastic, but they're very sturdy. So I was just kind of pulling a lot of these out of the box, and I wasn't paying attention, and they were hanging tough. And then I was like, is this metal too? And I kind of reached for it, but it was actually plastic. So those are plastic handrails on the metal, die-cast metal frame and shell and all that jazz. LED lighting, obviously. You got your fan grills up top, including radiator fan grills. And you've got your exhaust, but I'll show that on the MRL on the top. And speaking of MRL, we've now reached the other side, so you can see the MRL details. I will zoom in. The print looks good. There is something to be said about some of this print and color on a metal frame or metal model, because the real thing has metal, and it kind of helps make it look more real to have that metal appearance. So I think the die cast might have been a good call for realism in that sense. That's why a lot of brass folks, they like brass because it's metal. And speaking of brass and even other brands, some of the details might be kind of enlarged because of the metal. You see that on brass models a lot. Also seen that on MTH. It might not be as fine because of the die-cast metal. So we're back up to the front here now, and we're kind of looking at both. You got sunshades we mentioned. You can see the different antenna configurations. Sand filler hatches and separately applied grabs on the nose. There's separately applied grabs going up the nose. You've got your ditch lights above the anti-climber, your MU hose. I don't see an airline hose here. And I do see a coupler cut lever there. So you've got your MU hoses and coupler cut lever. And your anti-climber there on the front. A little more visible again on that gray, where you can see it a little better. So far so good on these details for the ACEs. Let's move on. Alright, as you know, I'll usually do a 360 of every scheme I have, but we have a lot to cover in this video, so we're just going to go down the schemes I do have, because there's several. You got Norfolk Southern. It's not a super shiny finish, it's more of a matte black. Looks good. It's got a specific PTC antenna arrangement that occurred during certain years. There's obviously a dome antenna NS that's not provided in this run, but I'm sure they're going to have a lot of future runs with these. They've got more UP heritage units that could be done, etc. Speaking of UP heritage units, here's C&W number 1995, a UP heritage unit. And here's Denver Rio Grande number 1989. Again, these are the dome versions. They have later PTC versions on the models, or on the real thing now, but for a certain year period, they were the dome. Speaking of PTC, the newer PTC on the UP is just like that. That's 8997. 9096 is what we looked at on the 360 view. You got Spirit of UP, one of the latest special paints from UP. Number 1943 here has a really nice metallic appearance. I think it really pops. It looks good. George Bush 4141 ran with UP 9096, I should say. That's on the 360 view on the George Bush funeral train. And now Broadway Limited's releasing business cars and power cars that can be on that funeral train as well. So if you haven't heard that news, you should check it out. And here's UP number 1996, Southern Pacific with the dome. So all of their heritage releases for UP are dome versions this time. We'll take a look this way so you can see the other side. But that is the extent that we're going to do, show you all the schemes. I will be operating different schemes throughout the video for review purposes, make sure we have a good, kind of quality control and everything's running properly. So there are your schemes that I have, and there's even some schemes that I don't have. So, you'll have to be sure to check those out as well. I know it's a little bit of a weird angle, but you can see the scale here. And right now we're in grams. That's 873 grams, 1 pound, 14.8 ounces. That's 1.92 pounds. So we're really close to 2 pounds on this SD70ACe, which is insane. All right, this is the only bit of the video where you will see smoke. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off from here. But this is what your smoke plume looks like. So there you have the smoke. You're going to want to keep fluid in there, obviously, but not overfilled. I'm going to go straight into pull test on this locomotive. Then we'll cover all the sounds. But I've been waiting for this for a while to see what these can pull. Okay, so the pull meter showing somewhere between 4.3 ounces. You can hear the prime mover notching up with that. But that is about 65, 68 freight cars each. So 2 of these can definitely pull a whole consist. All right, here's the locomotive. We've got the little handout here. Extended startup is F9, so we'll press that right now. Alright, so you hear the locomotive engineer get in. He's walking up on the ballast. He gets in the locomotive. You hear the door. You hear the warning bell on the SD70ACe, which is correct for the real thing. And then you hear the startup of the prime mover, which sounds correct for the real thing. Now here's a bell. You do have lit number boards, headlight, ditch lights. Here's horn. We'll do alternate horn on F22. So back to the main horn. So as you can see, there's ditch lights that are oscillating, blinking back and forth. That's correct on some road numbers, but not correct on others. I've tried pro lighting mode. I have not tried playing with configuration variables, so I'm not 100% sure that can be changed, but maybe you can comment below for folks that really know more about the programming aspects. But it's going to depend on your road number or road name if that's accurate or not. So 3 is coupler sounds. You have to move the locomotive to get that to engage. 4 is air compressor. 5 will increase your sounds of the prime mover. Maybe I actually hit 9 again. See, there's 5. Will increase sounds of the prime mover. 6 will decrease the prime mover. Basically, we're increasing and decreasing the notches there. 7, smoke on and off if you decide not to manually switch it off. 8 is master volume. 9 is startup shutdown. 10 is radiator cooling fan. I'm playing with F8 to see if I can kind of get it down on volume a little bit, but I think that's going to be in configuration variables, honestly. F11's full airlines, 12's brake set, 13 is grade crossing horn. '14 station sounds. 15's radio yard chatter. So 16 through 20 or more sounds, actually all the way to 21. 22 is that secondary horn toggle we talked about. 23 is track sounds toggle. So when your locomotive moves, you'll get the clickety-clack. So you probably heard that clickety-clack slightly. Then we have 24 turns the ditch lights on and off. 25 is the long horn. 26 is macro playback. 27 is record macro, and 28 is brake squeal. And at some point I just turned it off. But that was the shutdown sequence again when you hit 9. So the NCE ProCab sometimes keeps functions enabled, and I have to go back and turn the functions off, but there are a quick rundown of your functions. All right, as you can see, we're going to pick this up to 1 speed step here out of 128 on my NCE ProCab, and that 1 speed step is moving along pretty smoothly and quickly. We're going to take a look at their AccuTrack 2 speedometer to see what scale miles per hour this reads at 1 speed step. Now I know the light is at kilometers per hour, but it is set to scale miles per hour in HO scale. It's showing 1.7 scale miles per hour, so not too quick and not too bad for this locomotive. It's no conspiracy that I'm switching out locomotives. I want you to see all the schemes up close and personal. F7 turns off and on smoke, and the smoke is very reactive to that. It cut off immediately after hitting F7, and it turns on immediately after turning it on. So that's a good way to control it. Another thing, added capacitance, so you have power interruptions, and this locomotive is going to be able to deal with that and still maintain power for several seconds. As you saw there, it was probably about at least 3 seconds there where we had power uninterrupted, just levitating off the rails here. But if you have dirty track, if you have a switch that's just not that great, or track work that's not that great, you'll be able to maintain power to the locomotive with that added capacitance. Little twilight here so you can see the lighting in the dark. There is the number board lights. You've got cab lights that stay on until speed step 3, and you have your ditch lights, again, that flash. So as we move this, get to 3, cab lights turn off, ditch light, headlights obviously stay on. You have front and rear LED lighting. Here's your rear light, also nice and bright. There's your cab light going on as I slow down and going off as I speed up. Here's a quick look at our speed matching on the locomotives. I'm checking to see if the distances are closing on these locomotives, and they're maintaining about the same distance. So the speed matching on all the locomotives is pretty good. We're testing top speed now and motor noise. 93 scale miles an hour. So the motor is relatively quiet. I have the sound muted here. You can hear just a tiny bit of basically where it's turning. It's pretty quiet overall. And speaking of which, this Norfolk Southern version, the ditch lights flashing on it is correct. You can see the see-through rear grille there as well. All right, the raw pulling power of the locomotives do not equate to just how easy these pull. This is a over 150 car stack train. 3 locomotives are pulling it, no problem. There's a view of the stack train, intermodal, all the way around to this side. These locomotives are pulling it, and just to give you a comparison, some of the best pullers in the industry need at least 5 locomotives to pull. Now when you drop it down to 2 locomotives, it cannot handle the 150 plus car stack train, but there are like wheels that need to be tuned, and there's a lot of issues. But again, 5 versus 3 is a great improvement. All right, we're next to an Overland models version here of the SD70ACe. So again, metal, but there's not as much depth on the Overland models version. You can definitely see a yellow difference between the Overland models version and the Broadway limited version. So that difference is a little more evident now that I have a yellow right next to it. So you can probably see on the video that Broadway limited is going to have kind of a darker yellow, where Overland models is a more lighter, almost whitewashed yellow. It's almost like pre-weathered or faded. So that's one difference, but definitely a darker, maybe a hint of green. You don't want to ask me about green. I'm red-green colorblind, but I would say that the Broadway Limited is more in line with the MTH UP colors of their SD70ACe than the like Athearn or obviously Overland models right next to it. There are some details that are still slightly finer on the Overland models, but still not quite what was achieved in the Tower 55 molds of, or Tower 55 tooling that Athearn ended up using for their SD70ACe. But you can see a difference on the nose there. Now these aren't both isolated cabs, so there's going to be some differences there anyway. But as you can see, that they were able to. But of course, the locomotive on the right now goes for about anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 sometimes. Sometimes it's just in the mid thousands, but very, very expensive, where Broadway Limited is affordable and still metal as well, and that's also to be considered. So those are kind of a couple of differences between the brass and Broadway Limited. You can take a look at the tail end here as well on these locomotives and get an idea for yourself of some of the differences. Now we have Broadway Limited and MTH. Broadway Limited on the right, MTH on the left here. Here's a look at some differences. Obviously, you're going to have a antenna difference because when MTH released them, they were still in this dome antenna configuration. But you do see these are closer to the same dimensions. But if you look at the top, you can see Broadway Limited has a much more refined exhaust and radiator fans. Now they don't have a see-through fan grill on the MTH, which is back here, but if you look at the exhaust, it's way larger. And if you look at the fan grills, larger as well. Now my shadow is in the way, so let me try to fix that with all that black, but there's more refined details on the Broadway Limited by far than the MTH version of this SD70ACe. Or the MTH is technically an SD70M-2. All right, now we have the Broadway Limited on the right and the Athearn on the left. And you will see finer details on this Athearn version with some additional truck details and such. But the pulling power is another talking point that's really crazy because the pulling power doesn't match. I mean, the Athearns were getting anywhere between 2.1 and 2.8 just now in different areas of the layout, where the Broadway Limited is almost double that at 4.5. So if we were trying to pull this tax train with Athearn SD70ACe's, it would take probably 6 or 7, possibly up to 8, where with the Broadway Limited, it's more like 3, as you saw. So that pulling power is definitely something to be considered as well. But as far as finite detail, due to the die cast and whatever other, product development features and such, the Athearn's going to have finer detail, a little more refined cab window size. And we'll just take a look at the back here. So you can see there, and it's going to have a little more truck detail, underbody detail as well. And there's even different wheel sizes on the brake wheel. So, and again, the Athearn is not going to have smoke if you're into that as well. So there's just a comparison there. I think the Broadway Limited also has a brighter, seems to me more accurate SP color, but that's just putting locomotives that match side by side. I think the ditch light dimensions are spot on the same. Snow plow, MU hoses, most of the dimensions are actually spot on the same. It's just a couple different dimensions that are different. So looking at the top, when we compare exhaust, you're going to have a slightly bigger exhaust on Broadway Limited. And you're going to have, again, no see-through, but Athearn doesn't have see-through on the very rear fan grill either, but they do have see-through on the radiator fan grills. So there's just some very slight differences there with dimensions. One other note about pulling power before we move on is even the MTH version does not pull as well as the Broadway Limited version. The MTH is in the 3s. Broadway Limited's in the 4s. I had between 3.6 and 3.9 on pulling power for the MTH version around the layout, where Broadway Limited again is in the 4s, 4.3 to 4.5. Well, that's going to wrap up our look at the Broadway Limited SD70ACe, all or mostly die-cast. So, with that said, we'll leave you with a run by Not the big long stack train, but I'm going to do a run by of just some freight since we did the stack train and some of the tests. So we'll see you next time right here on the channel. Take care.